This is the weekly wrap up for the week ending July the 28th, 2024. I'm Jacob Payne. I'm going to give to you today the lineup, the wrap up stories we had. We had some serious issues this week with technology, so we're just sort of winging it. We do have 10 stories to give you. They're not necessarily the 10 top stories, but they're the 10 of the stories near the top that we covered this week that were pretty engaging. We're going to give you those stories to you right now and just give it to you to have something out here. Of course, we are always sponsored by Ground News of the Weekend. So if you want to check out the best news possible, go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news and get it on the app. That app will allow you to get news for less than $1 a month. Literally less than $1 a month for great news, great coverage on everything. Stories that you think you're seeing, but you're not actually seeing. Check it out at Ground News, and you get that app and help us out with a commission at Ground News at thisistheconversationproject.com/ground news. Now let's get into the stories. These are 10 stories from the week that we covered throughout the week in various cases. Most of them very consequential, some of them kind of silly, but we'll give you them and give you some context based on how they go. We don't have the full top 10. We may go with this format a bit more nuanced going forward, if you will. But right now, starting off with the top story, basically of the week, that basically drove the entire week of news coverage. President Joe Biden drops out of 2024 presidential race. Slow news Sunday until Joe Biden decided, while sick at home, dealing with COVID and just sort of living in the life that it is and seeing how things are going, decided he was going to drop out of the presidential race after many people had started to ask for that, essentially 3 weeks prior, starting with his very bad performance at the debate, and then his bad performance with an interview to try to explain the debate. And then he had a great rally performance. Then he had another bad interview performance, and then he had another sort of seemingly bad performance there. He called Zelensky Putin. He called Harris Trump. It was a whole lot of stuff happening. And then he decided, all out of the blue, even though he kept saying, we're doing this thing, we're in this thing, we're not dropping out. And all the main players essentially were saying he made the decision, he's got the votes. He drops out. And we hear that all the main players that on the front end were telling us that he can do what he wants to do, whereas secretly behind our backs telling him he's got to go. And he pulled out. So that makes Kamala Harris the presumptive nominee, presumptively, for the vice presidency, or for the presidency going forward. He's basically pledged his delegates, most delegates is pledged to her. And there's a whole lot of Kamala stuff going on that we're not covering here, but we'll talk more about Kamala stuff going forward. So with this, Donald Trump had a big week going into last week. Of course, he got shot the week prior. He had the convention where he said he was going to be unified, and then he all of a sudden became Donald Trump again. A couple days into the change of lineup, the new horse in the race, Donald Trump decided he wanted a refund. He literally wanted to get money back for the fact that he was campaigning all this time against the presumptive nominee being Joe Biden, and now he has to go against somebody different. And that's false advertising. He will not get the money back, of course, but that's basically Donald Trump playing Donald Trump. Also did some other dirty things. Started calling down Kamala Harris some dirty names. Just started doing all sort of crazy and showing that J.D. Vance is really not J.D. Vancing as well. Another story this week. Last Friday, the global IT outage that caused by CrowdStrike, which grounded airplanes, took TV networks off the air, caused banks not to get any work done. It was a seriously bad thing. CrowdStrike had an update for a software patch for their service that basically secures all the big companies around the world. They do basically virus protection and look out for firewalls, things like that. But one little thing didn't work. And so it killed basically the vast majority of their computers run the network. Now, their computers run on Microsoft background, so Windows-based things. And so they had to send a patch. They had to send some fix back in. But the only way to get that patch to work was to literally cut off every single machine that had it running. So every screen that had a blue screen of death had to be turned off, turned back on, and wait however time for the patch to fix. Now, it took a full day to get it going. A lot of things happening in the meantime. And one of the really quirky things about what happened was CrowdStrike actually opened up and offered everyone who got jaffed $10 of Uber Eats, $10 for lunch. And those gift cards all got rejected. There you go. Karen Reed is back in the news and was back in court after a murder case was thrown out after the mistrial before. Essentially, Boston's trying to try her again for the murder of her boyfriend. Now, here's what happened. Her boyfriend got run over by a car. She was driving while intoxicated. Those things happen. No one's not saying that didn't happen, but the liability, her basically state of mind, and the fact that he kind of was a not so great boyfriend came into an issue how it got to be a mistrial in the first place. Boston wants to get her back in trial and try her again. Her lawyers are saying, nope, not going to happen. They're still figuring that part out. The very, very sad and disturbing story this week surrounding Sonia Massey. Body cam footage of her shooting by the police officers who responded to her 911 call was shown. And for all practical purposes, it looks like a police officer pulled a gun and shot her in the face. We also learned today, Saturday as we tape this, or maybe it was late yesterday, but today, we have it in the news today, that the autopsy from her attack, only thing you can call it, shows that she was shot in the face, in the head, near her eye, a headshot by police officers who were there to attend to her after calling 911. And of course, as she died, her apologizing to the officers, saying she was sorry. The officer involved in the shooting has been charged. He has been fired. And yes, he served in 6 different police departments in 4 years. It's that bad. We go a little lighter for the rest of the show, but we just had to get that one through because it's one of those things we have to talk about. It was just such a big development in this week. Now, let's start off with Eminem and Taylor Swift, who don't really seem like they fit together, but the story does. Eminem put out a new album last week, and it had popped Taylor Swift out of the #1 spot from the album charts, in the top 200 album charts, which is a good thing. Well, number one, her album being Britney Spears. I got Eminem in my head. Her album, that being Taylor Swift's, was at the top spot for 12 weeks. And the biggest problem with that was it was coming very, very close to knocking off the all-time record of Stevie Wonder. Eminem came in and beat it this week and saved us from that record being broken. Thank you, Eminem. Also, NASA says there's no date for the return for the 2 astronauts who are stranded on the space station because their capsule that they flew up, made by Boeing, still has issues, and they're a little afraid to send it down. Now, that doesn't mean they'll never come down. They can come down in the Soyuz, lifeboat that's up there. That's more or less okay. It doesn't mean that they won't figure out a fix for the Boeing vessel. It just means that what they went up with can't come down right now. They are okay. They may be a little restless. They should have been back 2-3 weeks ago. Now they've been there for extended vacation, and they probably miss their families, miss their kids, but they're safe. They're not using up any extra oxygen or food. It's just a serious inconvenience to everyone involved. At least 30 Southwest flight attendants were injured by exploding soda cans. Oh, by the way, Southwest is ending their unassigned seating plan, which is something we'll probably talk about next week because it's a newer story. But this is a story for this week. A defect in soda cans that went onto essentially a batch that Southwest Airlines bought caused issues in pressurization, where once the cabin gets pressurized, cans get a little extra stress. And then when you open them up and shake them a little bit and pop that top, they blowed up in the cabin, folks. 20 flight attendants literally got injured from exploding soda cans in the air. That's something you don't see every day, and luckily we hope we won't see too many of those going forward. Very, very, very happy story, a happy ending for a worker who pulled a kitten out of a trash compactor and saved the cat in New Jersey. Now, I have this ongoing sort of, it's a running gag about cats trying to kill people. In this case, where a cat got in a sense where he was about to be crushed, but a very quick eyes of a sanitary worker who saw what was happening was able to get to quick action, pull the cat out of the trash compactor, and save the cat's life. Now the cat has been adopted. Everything is likely going forward. Good story to wrap the week up. And one story we're actually going to wrap the week up, but this final story that we have in this 10 for this week is this headline. Chicken wings advertised as boneless can have bones, Ohio Supreme Court decides. Now, a man in Ohio apparently was injured by a bone in a boneless wing. We have said many times, boneless wings are made out of pieces of the chicken that don't have bones. Henceforth, they're not wings. They don't have bones. They can't fly. They can't do anything. However, this court stated that just because they're boneless doesn't mean they can't necessarily have bones, because this man obviously bit into a boneless wing, a piece of chicken that had a bone in it, because he expected it did not. This brings up all sorts of chaos and havoc for boneless wings, for food in general, just so sort of just whatever, and could cause, as many of the comments we had talking about this, some serious ripples in the force that is the very, very, very lucrative world of suing people over food. This is just one case, and there was a case to be said, but I think the wording as said by this court that boneless wings can have bones in them is going to come back and haunt all of us, especially us folks who've been trying to fight the fight about boneless wings not being wings. That was the weekly wrap up based off stories we presented for things you might have heard all week long last week. If you like the story we talked about, that meant is one of the bigger stories we actually discussed. You said was engaging. You said was conversational. If you didn't like those stories, engage in other stories and see what happens. It's that simple. You go to our feeds on Facebook and Twitter, Facebook and X, if you will. Facebook.com/This is Conversation Project and Twitter.com/TH_Conversation. What you see there is about every 50 minutes, all day, all night, all the time, we post news articles from various different sources. As you see the articles, you engage them. You simply engage in them, like them, love them, hate them, share them. The more engagement you give to the story, the better chance we have of talking about it in the next iteration. It's just that simple. We talk about more stories. We'll give you 10 stories on Monday morning and then 8 the rest of the week, because we have 3 days to go through stories the weekend and the Monday. It's fun. It's simple. You can also stop by our website, thisisconversationproject.com, and find many things there, including many of our sponsors, all the sponsors listed there, including our main sponsor today, Ground News. You can also go to our partnerships page, and you can consider being a partner, help us do more things like this, and more things actually planned and worked out like this. You can go to our feeds, we actually do that on Facebook and Twitter, to see what stories we talk about. Email us anytime you're up to it at theconversationinbox@gmail.com, and let us know what we can do better or worse, or better or not so worse, and just enjoy yourselves. Remember that life is great even when your life isn't so great. We didn't think we'd get something out today. We are. It's not the best in the world, but we think it's an idea that will spark greater creativity. You let us know in the comments if this works or this doesn't work. In the meantime, we will prepare for another week. We have stories posted already from Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Green Room for Monday, so check out our feeds. Oh, also go to our website and follow us for our newsletter for email, so you can get us in that form, just in case, you know, the Zucks and the Musks decide to kill our content. Love you. Mean it. Have a great weekend. Prepare for another great week. And thank you for coming. All comments are warranted in just how great, or maybe how not great, this actual broadcast came about.